In recent years, the gaming industry has witnessed explosive growth, with an ever-increasing demand for diverse and engaging content. As this market expanded into the mainstream, it gave rise to a plethora of both good and bad games, attracting major players from various sectors to try their hand at capturing a share of this lucrative pie. One such company was Disney, which, recognizing the potential in this booming industry, sought to establish a presence by launching Disney Interactive Studios. Disney Interactive Studios aimed to leverage the powerful brand of Disney, with its vast array of beloved movies, characters, and other intellectual properties, to capitalize on the gaming market and establish its own footprint in the industry. With such a strong brand identity and deep financial pockets, it seemed as though Disney had the necessary ingredients to achieve success in this competitive arena. However, despite the developing numerous games and possessing an unparalleled library of properties to build upon, Disney Interactive Studios ultimately met its end in 2016. This unexpected turn of events begs the question, what went wrong? And why did Disney's foray into gaming fail? Disney Interactive Studios was a video game developer and publisher that was founded in 1994. It was part of the Disney Consumer Products and Interactive Media division of the Walt Disney Company. The studio produced games based on Disney's franchises, as well as original titles. The gaming market leading up to Disney Interactive Studios was dominated by Nintendo and Sega, who had established themselves as the main players in the console industry. However, with the emergence of new technologies and platforms, such as CD-ROMs, PCs, and online gaming, the market became more diverse and competitive. Disney saw an opportunity to enter this market and leverage its popular characters and stories to create games for the growing audience. The key figures behind the creation of Disney Interactive were Jeffrey Katzenberg and Michael Eisner, who were the chairman and CEO of Walt Disney Studios respectively. They envisioned a new division that would combine the creative talents of Disney's animation and film studios with the technical expertise of game developers. They hired industry veterans such as Patrick Gilmore, Craig Allen, and Randy Nelson to lead the new division and oversee its projects. The objective of Disney Interactive was to create games that would appeal to both people already invested in the Disney brand while expanding to reach new audiences in the new medium. Initially, the division was just as focused on building content for the web as they were making video games. Disney buying up early startups like Starwave, initially buying a 1/3 share of Starwave for $100 million in 1997, then acquired the outstanding shares of Starwave from Paul Allen in 1998, as well as purchasing 43% ownership of InfoSeek in exchange for Starwave and $70 million. The Go Network was developed as a joint venture between InfoSeek and Disney Online. The Go Network, InfoSeek, the Disney Catalog, Disney Online, ABC News Internet Ventures, and ESPN Internet Ventures, along with Buena Vista Internet Group, were merged into the Go.com company in July of 1999. In August 1996, BVIG took a controlling interest in ToySmart.com. However, after an attempted round of financing, ToySmart.com shut down in May of 2000. In June of 1999, the Disney Internet Guide was abandoned, and the Go.com portal was shut down in 2001, costing $878 million in charges. Disney Interactive also underwent several name changes and changes within the studio over time. It started as Walt Disney Computer Software in 1988, then became Disney Software in 1994. In 1996, it merged with Buena Vista Interactive to form Disney Interactive. In 2003, it rebranded as Buena Vista Games, then reverted to Disney Interactive Studios in 2007. In 2012, it consolidated its operations under Disney Interactive Media Group. It also partnered with various external developers and publishers over the years, such as Square Enix for Kingdom Hearts, LucasArts for Star Wars, Avalanche Software for Disney Infinity, BlackRock Studio for Split Second, Harmonix for Fantasia, Music Evolved, and Electronic Arts for Star Wars Battlefront. Disney had some solid wins in the gaming space through its run, though most of them would be as publishers or via acquisitions. Disney acquired Club Penguin in August of 2007 through a deal worth $350 million. The acquisition was part of Disney's strategy to expand its presence in the online space and tap into the growing market of virtual worlds for kids. Club Penguin, founded by Lane Merrifield, Dan Crisco, and Lance Priebe, was a popular virtual world for children where they could create and customize penguin avatars, participate in various activities, and interact with other players in a safe, moderated environment. The platform quickly gained popularity, and its acquisition by Disney helped bring it to an even larger audience, while also providing Disney with an established and successful online property for kids. And of course, we cannot talk about Disney and gaming without talking about Kingdom Hearts, probably their most massive win and most iconic mark on the gaming landscape. Disney Interactive became involved in the Kingdom Hearts series through a collaboration between Disney and Square Enix, formerly known as Squaresoft, a renowned Japanese video game developer known for its successful franchises like Final Fantasy. The partnership was a unique and groundbreaking venture, as it combined the creativity, storytelling, and iconic characters of Disney with the gaming expertise and RPG mechanics of Square Enix. The idea for Kingdom Hearts was conceived during a chance meeting between a Disney executive and a Square Enix producer in an elevator at the former shared office building of the two companies in Tokyo. The conversation led to the concept of creating a game that merged the worlds of Disney and Final Fantasy, resulting in a collaboration between Disney Interactive and Square Enix. It's important to note that Square, not Disney Interactive, was the actual developer of the original Kingdom Hearts game. Disney Interactive was involved in the collaboration and provided oversight for the use of Disney characters and worlds. With the actual game development, including game design, programming, and mechanics, was handled by Square Enix. The partnership allowed Square Enix to leverage Disney's intellectual property and storytelling, while Disney benefited from Square Enix's expertise in creating successful role-playing games. Probably the most influential title for Disney Interactive, and the one that ultimately sealed its fate, was Disney Infinity. Disney Infinity was an action-adventure sandbox game developed by Avalanche Software and published by Disney Interactive Studios. The game featured collectible physical figurines that could be placed on a special base called the Infinity Base, which would then unlock the corresponding characters and content within the game. Disney Infinity was designed to capitalize on the growing toys-to-life market, which was popularized by games like Activision's Skylanders. The hook of tying levels to buying collectible figure sets was marketing genius. In order to play more of the game, kids had to buy more toys with their favorite characters. Placing those figures on the Infinity Base would unlock specific story missions starring those characters they bought. Multiplayer was also based around toys. You could only play with your friend if you had a second figure from that set, so either you had to spot an extra toy for them, or they would have to buy one for themselves. It was a formula designed to print money. The development of Disney Infinity began in 2010, and the game was officially announced in January 2013. Disney Infinity combined characters and worlds from various Disney and Pixar franchises, allowing players to mix and match characters and create their own unique stories and adventures. Disney Infinity was structured around two main modes: playsets and the toy box. Playsets were story-driven adventures set in specific Disney or Pixar worlds, and players could only use characters from that particular franchise within the playset. In contrast, the toy box mode allowed players to use any character from their own collection and build their own custom levels and worlds using assets from different Disney and Pixar franchises, letting you play out your favorite crossover fanfic scenarios on the screen. Following the success of the original Disney Infinity game, two sequels were released: Disney Infinity 2.0 in 2014, which introduced Marvel characters, and Disney Infinity 3.0 in 2015, which added Star Wars characters to the mix. The game series was supported by the release of numerous new figurines, expansion packs, and digital content. However, despite the initial success, Disney Infinity faced challenges in the toys-to-life market, including increased competition and a decline in consumer interest. In May of 2016, Disney announced that they would be discontinuing the Disney Infinity franchise and closing down Avalanche Software. As a result, the company also ended their self-publishing efforts in the video game industry, choosing to focus on licensing their intellectual properties to external game developers instead. Another factor that led to the downfall of Disney Interactive Studios was its high cost. The studio spent a lot of money on developing and marketing its games, especially its ambitious and risky projects. For example, Disney Infinity cost over $100 million to develop, and required a huge investment in manufacturing and distributing physical toys. Epic Mickey cost over $50 million to develop, and had a massive marketing campaign that included a parade at Disneyland. High costs hurt doubly hard when combined with the end products that failed to sell well, and Disney Interactive's efforts had a history of following this trend. The studio often struggled to sell enough copies of its games to break even or make a profit. Some of its games sold well initially, but quickly declined in popularity or faced competition from other games. For example, Disney Infinity sold over 3 million units in its first month, but failed to sustain its momentum or match the success of its rival Skylanders, which the game shamelessly copied. Epic Mickey sold over 2 million units in its first month, but suffered from poor word of mouth and mixed reviews. Some of its games sold poorly from the start, or failed to reach their target audience. Fantasia Music Evolved sold less than 100,000 units in its first month, and was largely ignored by gamers and music fans. Developed by Harmonix, the company behind Guitar Hero, the game did not really align with the audience for that series, and the interest in rhythm games was already fading by the time it was released. It was also designed for the Xbox Kinect, an add-on that was widely derided by gamers. Tron Evolution sold less than 500,000 units in its first month, and was overshadowed by the movie sequel, which itself wasn't exactly a landmark success financially in its own right. Even Split Second, a racing game that reviewed excellently on both PlayStation 3 and Xbox, absolutely bombed commercially, only bringing in 86,000 sales in the first 12 days on the market. The studio's low sales resulted in losses for Disney, and reduced its confidence in the gaming business. The company on average would bleed $200 million annually from 2008 to 2012. And the losses did not stop, even as Disney Infinity debuted, despite strong initial sales. Disney Interactive Studios exited developing internal projects in 2016, after years of struggling to compete in the changing gaming market. Even Disney's current CEO, Bob Iger, has admitted Disney isn't very good at making video games. Competition from other publishers who had more experience and resources in the gaming industry crushed the paltry Me Too efforts Disney was putting out at the time. Disney decided to exit the console gaming business and focus on licensing its properties to other developers instead. The closure of Disney Interactive Studios marked the end of an era for Disney's involvement in video games. So, what ruined Disney Interactive? Honestly, it's that there was never any legitimate internal interest at Disney in the medium of games as an art form. The Wikipedia entry for the company is made up of almost entirely of a series of purchases and closures. Nothing at Disney Interactive seems to have been born internally from the company itself, which, in my mind, speaks to a lack of clear vision. Disney tried to buy their way into the budding internet and gaming market during the dot-com boom of the late 1990s by absorbing companies without ever having a unifying vision about what they particularly wanted to do with not just the companies themselves, but the medium of interactive entertainment as a whole. It was mindless money chasing with no overarching course. This is shown in the derivative software the company put out throughout the entire period of Disney Interactive's life. Even their arguably biggest hit, Disney Infinity, was just a knockoff of Skylanders with a Disney coat of paint. Nothing they developed internally ever seemed to come from a legitimate source of passion for, or at least the very least of understanding, the video game market. Disney Interactive rode the trends and absorbed smaller companies, then tanked them by not understanding why the companies they bought actually worked or had potential. The only long-term gaming success for Disney Interactive was Kingdom Hearts, and that's just as much due to the legacy of Square Enix's IP as it is Disney. Later releases in the series focus far less on the Disney integration, with the stories getting lost in a dizzying mess of its own original lore. And the franchise never slowed down. Throughout all this time, the bulk of Disney's gaming successes came from license deals with their partners. With the cost of AAA development skyrocketing, Iger must have seen the writing on the wall and realized that selling a license was basically zero risk and a better bet than taking on the load of increasingly costly development built for increasingly complex hardware to bring in increasingly little return. Better to stick what Disney does best, buying and selling, and let the established players do all the real work. Hence where we are today. Supporting this theory is that the only current in-house game production is done via Disney Mobile, which, as the name would imply, makes mobile games that have a quick turnaround period, comparatively diminutive development cost, massive profit potential, and a much lower quality floor in order to make said profit. In addition, Disney Mobile only actively supports a handful of titles at a time, shutting down previous games before launching new ones, further reducing cost and risk. If Disney has had an issue with playing things safe, they've reached the conservative apex with how they operate Disney Mobile. Their current plan now is to work with other studios to license their IPs, and let more seasoned game studios do the heavy lifting. Their long-standing partnership with Square Enix with the Kingdom Hearts franchise has done well both critically and financially over the years. But other partnerships have been less successful. It is important to remember that the Disney of today is a far larger, somehow even more corporate beast than they were while Disney Interactive was active. Disney's biggest IPs now are the products they purchase, rather than internally develop. So when looking at Disney's current licensing efforts compared to its heyday in the 1990s, we have to primarily look at Marvel and Star Wars, as opposed to Mickey and its animated film catalog. Ironically, this new path for Disney isn't really new at all, but brings the company back full circle. Back in the early 1990s on the Sega Genesis, one of its first big platformer games, even before Sonic, was Mickey and the House of Illusion, a game developed in Japan by Sega and licensed from Disney. The game is lauded as a classic to this day, spawning several sequels on the Genesis and Game Gear, as well as a remake in 2013 for the Xbox 360 and PS3. Tons of other games based on Disney franchises, like Chip and Dale, DuckTales, Aladdin, and The Lion King, were all licensed by Disney during the 80s and 90s, while being developed by Japanese juggernaut developer Capcom. Even in the mid-2000s, there was a Capcom-developed Nightmare Before Christmas game that basically played like a kid-friendly version of Devil May Cry, and included staff that later worked on and gameplay ideas that would eventually be included in Devil May Cry 4 itself. Point is, Disney Interactive is actually a relatively short blip in a multi-decade-long history of Disney itself, working as a licensor and having far more success doing so. At this point, the bulk of Disney's internal game development is focused exclusively on mobile games, which honestly makes sense. It's far and away the most financially lucrative market in gaming, but also the most predatory. If you want to see more about that, check out our video about what ruined mobile games. Till then, Godspeed Mickey. Maybe you'll be in Super Smash Bros. Someday with Sora as well. Probably not.